We are Lucy and Andrea, both 3D artists currently based in London. We decided to start this podcast together as we aim to motivate and uplift creatives by sharing our knowledge and that of other designers.
So if you're passionate about growing your creative skills, staying inspired, and navigating the challenges and rewards of the creative career, this is the podcast for you.
Sachi Patil is an art director and CG designer based in London. She specializes in building and art directing projects, exploring CGI and mixed media through research, experimentation, concept development, and treatment.
Her work feels very experimental and conceptually driven, with a great eye for everything visual, and better yet, she's an amazing human being who is loving and takes care of the community surrounding her. So without further ado, we're really looking forward to diving into this conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for coming here today, Sachi.
Wow. Thanks, guys. It feels very strange listening to so many nice things about you. In one go, I was like, what's going on? She needs to stop talking now.
Oh, there you
But
go.
I feel very humbled, and thanks for having me. And I hope we can have some interesting conversations today. And
for sure.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, first question, getting right into it. What drew you to design and entering the world of CG? Like, if you were to go way back.
It's a very interesting question, and one that I have thought of many times. And actually, it's when I was young and when I was a child, art and design was always like a big sort of almost a taboo in India. And I always was driven towards art and design, but every time I would say something like that, or even like getting into like film or anything, my parents and my relatives would always be like, oh my God, this is not a good thing. Like, just always like look down upon it. So I thought that how about I find something which is the next best thing that's close to art and design. And to me at that point, what seemed like the closest thing was architecture. So actually I was studying to be an architect. But because I was so bad at it, I completely like didn't make it to any of the architecture schools. And like I was a horrible like student. I would never get like good marks and stuff. I barely passed like my 12th, which is like the most important like the final sprint of
At
like your school.
right?
Yeah. And like horrible grades.
I was the same, to be honest. Like really not good.
And so I kind of had to take a drop year and all of those things. And then because architecture was then not an option, I was like, okay, now I can try to pursue design. And I don't really know why I did it, but I just always knew that I kind of like the open-ended thinking that created the room for as a person. And being an Indian person and an Indian girl at that point, I always was like taught to be very restricted, very well behaved, and very like all of these kinds of like norms on how you need to be like a good woman when you grow up and like get older, become a wife, have like a family, don't go out after 7 p.m. and all of these things. So, and I was like I was not like a rebel. I was a rebel. And I always wanted to, I was a very big pain in the ass for my mom. So I kind of wanted to like go away from it. And I think that's how I kind of landed into art and design.
Do you feel like you were drawn to it because it felt liberating to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially when you felt restricted, and also in a different way to architecture, which is very conformative in so many ways. So that wasn't like tapping into your need to that creative vision and expression that you needed.
100%. It was definitely that, because I think there was a complete reason why I just failed at architecture exams and like all of those exams, because they just didn't speak to me and they were not speaking to me. So I wasn't able to give my best input. And then when all of that didn't happen, I actually found like this school, which was an art school more than a design school, but now it's a design school in India that I really wanted to go to, because I had only seen pictures of that school from like some friends who used to go there on Facebook and stuff. And I was like, this school looks very free, very liberating. I feel like I will just feel so free over there, and I wanted to go there. And that was also a big struggle. I had to like really go against my family. My mom and dad, like my mom didn't support me going into that school.
Wow.
My relatives didn't support me. My dad was the only person who was like, she wants to go there. I have to support her because she's my daughter. I don't have a
Oh, that's
choice.
very sweet.
And so that's how I went there. But it was like the best decision of my life.
For sure. It's funny because I was just telling her that your parents seem very supportive from what I've seen. And of course, I'm guessing that after a while, your mum also kind of wrapped her head around it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that wasn't the case before. And we were on really bad terms, too much TMI. But but like eventually they wrapped their head around it. And only because they actually started seeing that she is doing well in design and she is like able to get good grades, do well, like make nice projects. People are actually like valuing what I was saying and everything. So I think that's why they got convinced that eventually that was the right decision. But it was a big like going against my entire like it was quite bad.
For
like back in the day. Yeah.
It sounds it. I mean, how old were you when you started at that school?
I think I started in 2013, but I had to drop out in 2012. So I was like probably 16 or 15 when I was like going through that whole phase. Yeah.
Wow.
I can imagine it being maybe feeling a lot of pressure during the semesters and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was
To get really good grades and everything to kind of convince your parents.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely was.
It's quite young really also to discover your love for design and to commit to that from that age.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah. I also like left my house and stuff. Like I was like, I can't be here. It's super toxic. Not toxic, but like we were just fighting. So I left and like, but yeah.
Good.
Did you ever think you would get into CG?
No, I had no idea. I didn't even know like this kind of a thing existed until I came to London.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
No clue.
I mean, yeah, I was saying in our last chat, I didn't even discover 3D until I was like 23. Like really, 22, 23. And
Same.
then it opened up a whole world for me and it was just like the most exciting thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool.
Amazing. Well, we were also digging into your portfolio a little bit, and we really like how, in general, your project's very conceptually driven. And there's this one in particular, which was your CSM project. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that project. Was your final degree project, was it, for the master's?
Yeah, it was my thesis project for my master's. So yeah, I came to London in 2019 and I went to CSM for my master's. And my project was it's called Decaying Conversations with Machines on Human Life. And the whole project, I think, kind of was building itself for 2 years because since day one of my day in CSM, it was like a very iterative process that it landed into that whole thing. But the project in general is about looking at the concept of decaying from a non-gross point of view. It kind of started with the idea that, when something's moldy or something's rotting or something's like going bad in your fridge, you always have such a repulsive like emotion towards it. And it was and that also happened to me by chance because I actually had some strawberries in my refrigerator, which I left for too long and they started growing mold in them. And then I was very curious to that process and I started photographing it. And as I started photographing it, I was like, this looks super interesting and I want to like explore this concept of like decaying and rotting a bit more. And yeah, it was very, very minor, like that act of like rotting and decaying and mold, but it was synonymous and metaphorical to like the larger concept of decaying in life in general, because it made me think about like it's too conceptual. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it.
Oh my gosh, go as deep as.
But yeah, so it made me think about like death as a concept because that was instantly like making you think about something's dying, but then death as like the end of life. But was it really the end of life? Because it also leads to like the rebirth of something, because that thing becomes like something comes and feed onto it, and then like it becomes a part of the soil, and then the soil becomes a part of like a plant. So like all of that was a constant like concept or like thinking for like 2 years of my life in like CSM. And somehow I was always like revolving around this topic. But it became decaying conversations with machine, with the machine on human life, because I kind of chanced into 3D, because I started photographing the molding processes. But then what the photography was doing was just, it was only letting me observe the process. It was not letting me control it, like, because when you take a photograph, you can only just like take a picture of it, and you can just be like, you can observe it, but you can't sort of like go back in time with photography or go forward in time with photography. But I was like, hey, if I learn 3D, maybe I can like fast forward to like what this mold process can look like, um, without waiting for 10 days, and do the same like at the back. And that's how I actually chanced upon 3D. And I also started getting into like AI. And back then, like AI wasn't a thing, because ChatGPT was like, it was GPT-2, which was the precursor of GPT, where you had to like train your model and like have to have a conversation with it. And that's why it was like conversations with machine on human life, because basically what I started doing was I was like reading a lot about this whole concept of decaying and what it means for like the world, not just like in a phenomena perspective, but also like politically, from a climate change point of view, from like everything. Um, and and then I started feeding ChatGPT like all of those books that I was reading and all of those conversations that I was having with people, and making all of that, taking text from the book, converting it into like a text format, because you can't just feed like a PDF to you couldn't back then. So it was really like training the model so that it started understanding the knowledge of like what I'm trying to have a conversation about. And it was so imperfect that it kind of like started spitting out almost poetry kind of like text about decaying as a concept. And so I was what I was trying to do is that I was trying to perfect the text, but then my course leader told me that, why are you perfecting it? Because it's beautiful the way it is. And it was like poetry. So I took all of that text without even trying to like perfect it. And then the text, I was basically having a conversation with the machine about like what the machine thinks about decaying as a concept in life and in general. And then I kind of like started, but to visually like support those like conversations, I also wanted to like, because we are visual people and we need aids. So I explored the concept of decaying in 3D, and like the text and the images, and then it became a book eventually.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it was cool.
Sounds like such a cool process, and like that whole thing about having a conversation with the machine, and then just very exploratory, like seeing where it would take you.
Because obviously nothing stems from isolation, and my project was inspired by many, many artists and designers and like their thesis projects and their practices in the past. But yeah, I think it was still unique in a way, because just it was for me like a super special to teach like a model how to think about like decaying, and like a machine back in time, like how is a machine supposed to understand what these like superhuman like feelings even mean about like.
Were you finding what the AI was giving back to you insightful?
In some ways, yeah, because even the way like the AI was spitting the text out was like glitchy, and the way that it was saying like things like decaying, 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 and then like that itself looked like a visual like poetry, and like using that as like a layout format for like the book. And it was very, very philosophical too, because eventually it started like really understanding how to actually value the process of decaying, and like how to look at it from a lens of like something that can help us really value the balance of life and death and preserve these sort of like molding processes and actually respect them and actually like really look at them with like love and beauty. So yeah, like it was about finding the beauty in decaying and like all of these things, which was cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
Do you ever feel that thinking of decaying feeds into your thoughts now? Like
Yeah.
sometimes once you've had such a deep understanding of a topic and you've really unpacked it like that, it becomes part of you in some way, and then it always feeds into your work or the way you look at life.
100%. Yeah. I think for me, I think that is one of my favorite like philosophies because I learned about it so much and I studied it so much. And I think we all think about it all the time because we go for these mushroom exhibitions and like that is the same thing. And like we love nature and like, when we did like that girls trip for like in the nature, we were like also looking at like all of these things. So yeah, so it definitely is a concept and like a learning and a value that I really value personally. Yeah.
It's cool.
So cool. And in general, when you work in more like studio projects, how does this, just concept-driven design feed in into studio projects?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question and also a struggle
Yes, it is.
because I went to CSM because I really wanted to do experimental work and like concept driven work and work that has meaning in like my daily life. And it kind of does, like in a lot of ways, but we are still being pulled back into this capitalistic world, capitalistic with a capital C. And and it completely tries its level best on a day-to-day basis to not let you think like that and to not be deeply having a deep understanding of what you're doing. Like for example, I try to have like my project always have like a concept driven like note, but how fast are you developing that concept is really like a good and a bad thing, because sometimes you really need the time to think about the work to actually have like the reason why the decaying concept is still holding meaning in my life even after like 3 or 4 years is because I thought about it so much and for so long that it has synthesized. But if I would have just thought of it for like, one day or like 1 hour, it's not going to make that much sense. And so, yeah.
Sometimes that's the time you have.
Exactly.
in
And
studio
sometimes that's the
projects,
time you have in studio projects. And so I think for me, like time is always important. Like I'm always running against time, but if I always have like more time to put into my concept, it's always going to have a more value. But sometimes there are ways to like go about it in a way where I don't know how would you approach it?
So one thing that happens, I feel a lot during projects, I don't know if this feeds into this, but basically when you're tackling a project and you have a concept at the beginning, right? I feel like sometimes that concept, it's really difficult to keep it as strong throughout when you're there's like this feedback loop with a client, and sometimes what they ask for maybe drives away from that initial concept. And sometimes I feel like that's what makes or breaks a project.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wonder, like, how do you make sure to kind of keep that concept strong, even if you haven't had maybe as much time to kind of delve into that concept, but just keeping it strong throughout.
Actually, that's a really good point that you gave me, because for me, the concept is something that really is a good way to like find a boundary for your project. And you need boundaries. Like the boundaries are good for you because those boundaries help you always like pull your project back into the realm that it needs to be. Like without boundaries, the project can just be very aimless and like just float. But sometimes the concept can just be super simple, like it doesn't have to be like a really deep thing. It can even just be like, okay, my concept is like based on a tool, like, in 3D, like we are doing something that's generative, and we are really letting the noise control like the result, and like and the seed control the result, and like this seed is going to give you this input and that seed, and that can itself be like such a strong
For
concept.
sure.
So yeah, I think concept can be anything, but like the tool is not the concept. The tool is like facilitating the concept, if that makes sense.
I think that's such a nice way of thinking, that the concept can really be anything.
Yeah.
Because I guess when you say the word concept from a design perspective, you're seeing it as like the big idea that then leads the whole project, and something that is so easily understood for the client, the end user, and the designers themselves.
Yeah.
But when you're breaking it down into all the different layers of what a concept can be, it really could even just be a personal thing for you to help aid your work
100%.
process by creating restriction to allow you to be more creative within the realms that your kind of mini concepts that you've got working.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. I think we just put so much weight on this word concept. Like it's like, oh wow, but
it can be.
It can be.
And then you can play with the most simple end of it.
Exactly.
And it's still strong. Yeah.
Can be the simplest thing. Yeah.
But I do think though, like, say for example, when you've been presenting work to clients or you're putting together a treatment deck, I feel that definitely from my perspective, when you have a strong concept, it allows everyone else in the team to get on board with the idea.
Yeah.
And the client, that it allows you to be more experimental in the design part of that process because they trust your concept. And I find that sometimes when your concept, from the broadest perspective, when your concept isn't as strong, everything else, all the other decisions made down the line aren't as trusted.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't allow you to be as free. How do you find that? Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, like sometimes if like I'm working on a treatment or a project and the concept's weak, it kind of really affects the project in all dimensions, because if you don't have a strong concept, then you don't know what you are really vouching for in front of the clients. And then when they ask you for something and they try to go against what you're proposing, that's like not a good thing for you to then convince them to like do what you want to do in the project. And I always find like having a concept or like a solid reasoning for like why I'm proposing something to do, if there's a good understanding and like a good reasoning for it, then I can almost always convince the clients that like this is why we should do this, because it makes more sense based on like the idea of like the project. And they almost like always agree. Maybe we don't do it, but like they always agree that like what you're saying makes sense. But but for whatever reason, like the client, like the marketing team doesn't agree or whatever. In that sense, it always works. Yeah. And also for the designers and like for the team that we when we're working together, like if there isn't like a solid concept that's there in the project, sometimes the team also feels like a bit lost.
Yeah, that's so true.
And then you're almost responsible, for not having like a solid base for the project, because there are people relying on you to like have that solid understanding of like what they need to do.
It's like the North Star of the project, basically.
Yeah.
And if that's really clear, then it's gonna help client you and the whole team, as you just said.
Exactly.
Definitely. But I think, just going back to your point quickly on the amount of time that you have to unpack a brief and come up with the creative thinking and the concept, it is so true that if you do dedicate a good amount of time up front, not that every project allows, this is the point, but if you do actually dedicate that time to really unpack the creative thinking, it does wonders for the rest of the project. But I always do feel that part is madly rushed for the sake of everything else. And then you do think, if you did have that bit more of a time to get under the hood, like it opens up so many more worlds.
It does. It does, but also contradicting myself, I think time constraints are actually really helpful, because sometimes I mean, no amount of time is going to be enough time. Like when I was working on my project for like the final stretch of like those 3 months, it felt really less like during my MA thesis project. But I remember my course leader actually making us make a timetable. And like there was a sheet that he gave us. And in that sheet, it was like, what are you going to do in like these 3 phases of your project? And he made us sort of like, pre-plan our projects, like kind of like how a producer would pre-plan the project. And we almost had to stick to it. And that really worked for us because it was like, yes, you have this much time, do whatever you can within that much time and do the best you can. And it works because I recently worked on a very intense project, which was also extremely demanding and very, very time intensive. And we all felt like there's clearly not enough time for the project, but there's a lot of expectations that you need to make happen. And in hindsight, I feel like that was good because we should have had more time and we had to work extra hours and stuff. And everyone was saying that there isn't enough time. But we managed, and the result was good. And sometimes it really does you wonders to have like that restricted time. Like you just have 2 hours, do it as much as you can.
Yeah. And you don't have time for there's no time wasting. You have to just really be in flow and just see what comes out and what's possible.
Yeah.
So it's true. It's a good point. And I mean, that's literally what we do for work. That is how we have to.
Yeah.
That's how we have to work. There's no other way.
It's just another design restriction at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like you need
exactly. It's also a design constraint.
Yeah. What do you love most about the industry and the work that you do?
I really love the people and the community and the friends, because for me, like that's the most important thing, like the people I surround myself with. And it's always like guided me in the right direction. Like I think I've always have been lucky in my life to be surrounded by really intelligent people who are also really nice people most of the times. So yeah, for me, like that community and just people and friends.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel the same. Like in London, I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because when I first arrived to London, I feel like it was I was working at Found, and honestly, there weren't that many women there at the time, especially not designers that were women. And and it was really good to suddenly find you guys and see that there are women out there who do CG, and it feels good.
And I also would just say, like, most of the people that I think that do 3D are just really like-minded.
It definitely like connects us, right? Like we already have something that we can all relate to collectively. So that already gives us a collective understanding of like this very specific area of like expertise that we all have. And that kind of like automatically forms a sense of like community bonding between us. But I also think that it's not just about like the friends, like you guys, of course, you guys, but I think it's also especially important in the workspace, like your daily 9 to 6 p.m. of like who are the people you're working with every day. Because
so important.
So important. And that's what, if for me, like the environment that I'm working in is filled with nice people, then even if the job is difficult or sometimes like not the best planned for whatever reasons, or like the work can be toxic, but the people shouldn't be toxic, if that makes sense.
So much.
So true. So, it really takes all the pressure off the actual work itself, because they've got your back, and
That's
vice
exactly
versa.
right.
Yeah.
And then it's safe for you. Yeah. So true. And you can do your best work in that environment.
Exactly.
That's all the difference.
Yeah.
I also feel like when you've worked with the same team for a good amount of time and everyone knows each other's strengths and can bring that out in each other, I feel it's so empowering to have that.
Yeah.
I particularly miss it now that I'm freelance, because when you are working full time, that is one of the main beauties of it.
Yeah.
Is like thriving together rather than being that individual. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like you've always had that though? Like the best sort of like environment in terms of people and community in the studio?
I do feel like I've been very I'm grateful for the experience I've had. Both studios I've worked at before, the people were great from my perspective, and I do feel like it's cool what you were saying before, Lucy, about having that opportunity to sort of get the best out of everyone and stuff. I also do feel like freelancing, though, I've had the opportunity to kind of get out of my comfort zone more. I feel like as soon as you're seen as you have specific strengths, then it's natural for them to kind of want to dive into that more. But then I feel like it's difficult territory because you might be pigeonholed into that maybe slightly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But no, in terms